Hello, welcome to Worship Tutorials. I am Bradford.
Hey, I'm Brian. Hello.
We are discussing we're going to come up with a more clickbaity title. I feel like this isn't good enough yet.
They've already seen the title, Bradford.
They've already seen it, but we're talking about the hidden cost and the unknown knowledge of using basically the short version. We said modelers, but it's like any silent solution.
Any kind of digital thing.
That's not an actual amp.
Yes.
Even there are digital amps, but that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about things that basically don't have actual, like a speaker of some kind to output audio.
Yes.
Because we often see people who get a thing and they're like
A thing such as
a a Helix
or a Pod Go.
or a Tonex
Or a
or
Quad
an ACS1
Cortex.
or
Yes.
there's a plethora of things.
Yes.
We will be mentioning them throughout. And they get them because they're like, I found this for $300. It's awesome.
And it's all I need.
Yeah. And then inevitably they realize, how am I going to listen to this? And this isn't a slight to those people. It's more of it's just not talked about. And then there's always threads and people are saying, hey, how do I monitor this at home? How do I monitor this at home so it sounds exactly the same at home as it does at church?
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. That's a different that's a different thing.
Yes.
But we're going to be talking about that because it seems like a really good deal. You get like Tonex, for example. It's the only
$400.
It's $400, and it's the only unit that is like a profiler, capturer thing, amp cloner thing on its own, and that's it. It's the only one that exists. There's other units that have it in there, but you get that thing, and it sounds really good because people are like, "This is the first." Like Kemper did not do this. This is all we wanted from Kemper, and IK Media did it, and it's $400. Awesome. Then you're like, "What do I do?" Like, I have this thing. It sounds great. $400. Well, how do I listen to it?
It's not as simple as just buy the Pod Go.
Yeah,
And then you're done.
Yeah.
No, there's a few more things involved. We're going to give you some suggestions too on what we use and what you could use to make life better. But it's not just a single purchase.
It's not. It's not. For guys like us, we utilize these things in our studio, and we have equipment to utilize this. And so for us, it's not even a thought.
Yeah, we have a infrastructure already built.
Yes, we have interfaces, we have computer monitors, we have power cabs actually from Line 6.
We do.
We have headphones, we have in-ears. So headphones are an option, but you get the UA pedals.
Yeah, they don't have
headphone outs. Okay, you get a Tonex. I believe Tonex
has one. If you put it in the middle of your chain, if you put delays and reverbs after it, you're not going to hear those in the headphone out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you need to figure something out. Some of these units, the bigger ones, really, like the bigger names.
The all-in-ones.
The all-in-ones have USB
Helix
jacks
that
aren't just for connecting to your computer to add presets. Some of these are actually interfaces, so that's helpful.
Yeah, a lot of them act as interfaces.
Yeah, and you just go, if you have a DAW digital audio workstation, you can get Reaper for free, I believe. Actually, that's a good example. There's other free ones if you want. If you have a Mac, you get GarageBand for free. But you hook that up. You just got to select in the sound menu the preferences that you want to use that unit as that. But then you need speakers. For example, for us, we use UA stuff. Universal Audio. I have like the smaller Apollo Twin Duo or something,
which
and
is
Brian,
still
I think
over $1,000.
That's now, especially it's changed, but I use that. It only has technically 2 inputs on its own, which is fine. I have other stuff. Brian has like 3.
I have a lot of
Apollos.
I have a lot. I'm a little extra.
But we use that for what we do. It means that we don't have to keep unplugging stuff. That's not necessary at all. If you don't need any of that, but you still need something
like an interface.
You still need something. You could do an interface and get a set of monitors, but even cheaper interfaces and cheaper monitors.
You're still in for probably at least as much as the unit you just bought.
Yeah, it could be $300 to $400. If you spend like $100 on those, it may do more harm than good. Only from the sense that it may not be the most accurate representation.
That's the thing. You want an accurate representation of what you're doing.
Yeah. And you don't need to have like you got people who like Fuller. Fuller's uncle does like incredibly, he masters like hit records. Fuller told me he's got a set of studio monitors that I think cost
he
like
uses
6
Dyne
figures.
Audio. stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're 6 figures, like a house.
Yeah, like
Completely
$100,000 on your speakers.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
We're nowhere close to that. We're like 3 digits different from that to begin with. But it's like, even then, it's still a lot of money just to play your guitar and to listen. But you need something. Headrush has like a speaker a lot of people like.
The FRFR stuff. Full range frequency response.
Can you elaborate on that? You know a little more about this stuff. What exactly is that?
Okay, so it's not like a PA speaker is essentially what it is.
Yeah.
It's a guitar speaker, like that you plug your guitar into, will shove off a lot of high end and some low end, has a very specific sound.
Like in an amp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
a speaker in an amp.
An FRFR speaker is just gonna it's just gonna play back what you put into it. Yeah. So you could run an iPod or a phone. You could run. Do people have iPods?
I don't think they make them anymore.
Run a phone. You could just play music through it, and it's gonna sound like the music.
Yeah.
Right. It's not gonna color it in any. It will actually color it.
They claim to color it. Again, we're gonna talk about that part.
But it's meant to be an accurate playback device of what you put into it.
Yes.
That's what it means. So that's a great way to essentially amplify your digital unit.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can plug it just straight into the unit.
That is so I was mentioning, because we were talking about can we just use studio monitors? I've heard from different people, yes. I've heard from different people, no.
We need to try it and see what happens.
We should try it. But what I will say, studio monitors, that's not their intent, though they could be used. So everything may be permissible, but not everything is beneficial.
There you go, Apostle Paul.
Yeah. But FRFRs, that's kind of more why they exist.
Yeah.
For this kind of thing. So you can get real pricey. There's Mission has a nice one.
Yeah.
Friedman has a nice one. Or at least I think maybe Friedman worked with somebody to make something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, Line 6 power cabs, we love those.
Those are great.
Those are sweet. But a speaker, my suggestion, if you want to actually hear it as opposed to a decent set of headphones, just get one of those.
Yeah.
The catch also is, if you want to hear stereo, you will need to.
You need to.
Or the Power Cab Plus.
Stereo one.
The stereo Power Cab. There's Power Cab Plus, and then there's
a stereo one, yeah.
Yeah. You can get headphones.
That would probably be my first suggestion for people is headphones. Yeah.
Because you can, especially if you want to use your unit, if you can use the unit as an interface, which is easy. Just if you're trying to figure it out, just type in.
Many of them do.
Yeah. If there's a USB, the answer is maybe yes, but if not, just Google. Can my whatever unit be used as a computer interface? See what come up. Because then you can run the headphones into your computer, and you can use settings somehow to run audio from your computer back to your unit, and you can like play along using your computer and hearing your unit at the same time, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're practicing, I do that. I like to work out my parts separately, but then I also like to, can I go back and play with the track?
Yeah.
So you need to be able to do that. So just running headphones into your unit, like the ACS1, if you have that and you run your headphones into that, well, then how are you going to hear it at home? So that changes things too. So you need to determine what your unit has.
The headphone route works best with all-in-one type units.
That's the
like
short
a
version,
Helix.
isn't it?
Yeah. And it's also convenient because you can play it silently,
Yeah.
which is nice. I would imagine most consumer buyers are buying, meaning not like, like studio musicians or whatever, are buying like iPod
Beats,
or
something like that.
What are the headphones?
AirPods.
AirPod. Thank you. Why am I stuck on iPods today? I'm living in the past. You're living in the past, man. AirPods. Thank you.
Yes.
Either Pro, Max, whatever. Bluetooth headphones will not work.
Phones used to have headphone jacks,
Yeah, they don't do it anymore. Bluetooth headphones will not work with your modeler.
Latency.
For one, none of them support Bluetooth headphones.
That's a very
that I'm aware of.
Does Headrush? Headrush has Bluetooth.
Yeah, but not for headphones.
And not for headphones.
And the reason for that is latency.
Yep.
So one, you can't use wireless Bluetooth headphones at all with these things. And I think that's what most people are using these days.
Yeah.
I would guess. I could be wrong. The other thing is the way that headphones sound. If you're buying, quote, consumer headphones, they are extremely colored, meaning the headphones themselves impart an EQ curve on all the stuff that comes through them.
I saw an article.
Many of them are hyped lows and highs.
Yeah, and I saw an article on that at one point that were like, the Beats, the big like especially there was like
Yeah.
several years ago when
Yeah.
the Beats like first came out, and there was like this idea that like everybody loved them, and they said no, it's just because people equate quality to like more low end,
Yeah, bass.
and then people just like think that like they sound great,
Yeah.
which is gonna cause a problem because you're gonna like EQ your patch. You're like, oh, it's too bassy.
We'll get into this in a second.
We're getting there.
But it will contribute to your patches sounding bad in
Yeah.
a live environment.
Yeah.
Like they might sound great in your headphones, and that's fine, but when you play them on other systems.
Yeah, this is more about just so you can identify a problem you may have.
But yeah, if you want to use headphones with your modeler, it's a good idea to buy some quote studio headphones. And there's some we'll have some links in the description.
Yeah, you could spend a lot of money.
Not very expensive options and some more expensive options.
Yeah. There's just things to consider too, because like the Iridium, the impedance of the Iridium with the headphone jack, I try to use a
Like
set
you
of
can't get
headphones
enough
I
volume
had,
out of it?
and if I were to crank the volume enough so I could actually hear it, it was clipping.
Yeah.
So there's like things you got to pay attention to, and I didn't know this, and I claimed to be somebody who at least kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so really quickly before we move on, if you have an Iridium or a Tonex pedal and it's in the middle of your signal chain,
Yeah.
so you have, in other words, you have reverbs, delays.
It's not really the
after
middle.
it.
It's
Yeah, you've
but
got
it's the
things
middle.
after it that you want to hear in your
Yes.
headphones. How can you do that?
Yeah.
Because there's a way.
Yeah.
You need a headphone amp
You can get a headphone amp
that will accept at least a stereo input.
if that's
If
that's
you want to
important.
run stereo
Those
wet
exist.
effects.
Yeah. We actually used them at a campus I was at.
Yeah.
And we used a
And they're
headphone
not crazy expensive.
amp. They're not. They're not going to sound amazing.
Yeah, not all headphone amps are created equal. And
No.
then you can put your pedal board, the outputs of your pedal board, you plug them into your headphone amp and then plug your headphones in and then you can listen. You're
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Another option is
But it's just another thing you got to buy.
it's another thing. In that same vein, you can also get like mixers. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
You can buy a little
Mackie
Behringer mixer or
or
something.
Behringer. Mackie makes a mixer. I want to get
It's
one.
actually probably a much more convenient way to go.
For most people, probably is because also some of these have USB ports too.
Yeah.
So you can end up using
That
that
could
as an
be your-
interface.
you could be your
You
interface.
could do that.
That's a great option,
Some of them
actually.
do. They get more expensive, but like you go on Craigslist, I bet you can find a Mackie for like
Plug
$30
monitors into them if you wanted, yeah.
and you can use that and you can plug your guitar in. I've actually considered doing this. Sometimes I've done events like at my church where they were like, well, we're tracking your guitar stereo.
Yeah.
Because that's normally why I get called to these other events is because they want me to do the bleeps and noises that
Yeah.
I like doing and
Yes.
that I'm good at doing, I like to think. And like, we're tracking you stereo, but you're in mono for in-ears.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I just can't gauge how big or small things sound.
Yeah. It's hard for
That
you
way.
to know.
So I want to do that actually. I'm going to get a little Mackie thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
Run my monitor mix from them into that.
Yeah.
And then tell them, don't give me any guitar. And I'll plug my guitar through this, which
Yeah.
something like this is a perfect segue, like the Canvas Stereo DI has throughs. So I
Yeah.
could go out my board quarter inch into that XLR to them so they can record, and I get the through quarter inch
Yeah.
into my little mixer, and I can. But that's the segue into DIs.
Okay. So we've covered first thing is, how are you going to hear this thing?
Yeah,
Because you got to buy something.
you got to buy something.
Yeah.
And then it's from there. It's what can my unit? How does my unit even?
How am I going to use it live?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
There is a simple solution of how you use it live.
what's that?
However it outputs XLR quarter inch, plug that into the board.
There you go.
That'll
work.
Step number one. It
That'll
works.
do.
Yeah.
That will do.
You just need cables.
Yeah. So you still need something. All these units obviously have outputs, but
Yeah.
some of them are different. Like
Yeah.
you look at the back of some of them, you're like, I see quarter inches. But the Stomp, for example, is not just that. They're balanced. So that's a different thing.
You've got balanced, you've got unbalanced outputs,
Yep.
you've got line level outputs, you've got instrument level outputs,
Mm-hmm.
you've got microphone type outputs like XLR
XLR, yeah.
So there's a lot, and we're not going to cover all that in this video.
This is more
That
to
would take
draw
a
your
long time.
attention to
Yeah.
things that you probably aren't thinking
But-
of or are aware of.
Yeah, but there's a lot to consider, and then what you're plugging into.
Yeah.
It it has different types of inputs, and you can change. You can put pads on those inputs. Some of them are line level, some of them are instrument level, some of them are mic inputs. There's a lot. Preamps with gains and things like that. So
and it does things, because you need to get the part of it also is if you go out of a unit and you just send a weak signal to front of house, they will gain up the channel on the board so they have control and get more level, because you don't want to just like plug into the board and then they just dime the fader. The gain, the short version for a guy like me who doesn't really understand all of it completely, the short version is the gain is like basically giving you how much room the fader is going to be adjusting. So like if the gain is all the way down, you have like that fader doesn't really, like you have to crank the fader all the way up. If you have the gain all the way up, what that fader is doing is way less, because it's like it's got to cover. It's got the same distance to travel, 0 all the way up. So it's got to cover a way more bigger difference. So it's way more touchy at that point, if that makes sense. This is not the technical answer, but the gain knob is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And if you crank the gain knob at the board, there's a greater chance that noise gets introduced.
All that noise floor is coming up with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the Helix stuff. There's the Fractal stuff. Kemper, for example, they all have XLR outs. That would be what you should choose, I would imagine.
I would, yeah.
I don't know why you would ever run because the other option is, why would you run 1/4 inch out into a DI
to get XLR?
Yeah, to get XLR. That doesn't make sense. But the whole reason we're talking about this is because you need to consider, does the place I'm playing have a DI for me, or do I need to bring one myself? And if they do supply one for me, what is it doing? Because not all DIs are created equal.
No.
You can get them for like $30.
Yeah.
And they will do the job.
You get what you pay for.
They will convert the 1/4 inch into an XLR. And that's basically all it's doing.
Yeah.
And that can introduce noise too. That can be a different kind of noise. That can introduce like weird hum or whatnot. There's options like, you can go all in and you can get like DSO from Pinstripe.
Yeah, so there's some really cool higher end DIs on the market.
Yes. They're typically called like line isolators too.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
It's a slightly different category of thing, right? So you've got the DSO from Pinstripe, and Pinstripe makes a lot of options for you.
He's got the MISO, which is mono, I guess, or one.
Yeah, you can do, and then he's got options there for like polarity reversal or phase and
summing.
Taking a stereo signal and properly summing it to mono. So something like that. You've got the Canvas from Walrus, and there's some other stuff too. Like what do you have on your board?
I have a Goodwood long line on my board. That's cool for a couple reasons. It's the same idea, so I can run something like that if I want to use any of these like amp pedal things.
Yeah.
But it also is cool because it's like another like radial SGI alternative. So it's at the end of my chain.
Run really long cable.
Yeah,
rails.
so I can run. That's a different thing. If you
sure is.
We're not even talking about real amps here.
You're in a lot of money at this point. Yeah.
But run XLRs, and that keeps the signal stronger and better. So I can run basically XLRs out of my board into wherever I'm keeping my amps. I can go 300 feet apparently, which doesn't mean 300 physical feet. It means the cables are 300 feet. Can be 300 feet, and then it receives the XLRs, and I can then turn them into 1/4 inches for my amp. So it's not the same idea as running 300 foot 1/4 inch.
Yeah, that's
kind of insane.
You'd have like much less high end on your signal.
Way less. Yeah, it'd be gnarly.
Another thing to consider.
Yeah, but the long line doubles as one of these like line isolators, basically.
Yeah, I know a Gig Rig makes some solutions for this type of thing as well. But it's something to consider. How are you getting your digital, model or signal to the board at your church or venue?
Yeah.
It can be as simple as taking cables and plugging them in, but there are some options that can increase your level of success.
And this isn't like you have to do this.
No, of course.
Because if you don't want to spend lots of money, which totally makes sense. Again, you just spent $300-$400 on a unit, and now
or maybe $1,200.
Well, yeah,
$2,000.
Yeah, but I guess my point here is like, if you're somebody who's like, I'm stretching
You're
to
on a
buy
budget,
a $300 or $400 unit, and you mean to tell me I need to spend that much again in order to use the thing?
Right, you're doubling your cost.
Yeah. So okay, all this stuff, so you can listen at home, basically.
Yeah. Listen at home and then play it live.
And then the other thing is, okay, when I'm at the venue, the church or whatever, how do I get the sound to be good, the signal to be good? So front of houses, but and this is our next segue.
Yeah.
What happens when I get there and it doesn't sound anything
Oh, I know this.
alike? Now, there's a lot of reasons. Again, we talked about that.
I've never experienced this in my life.
Yeah, never. So I brought up, or when we were talking about headphones, I brought up like Beats, and you were like, they hype the lows. And so, I mean, that's one reason
They color
why.
it, yeah.
But you could still have pretty stellar equipment, and still things won't sound the same. And that's the other thing. People think that there's a problem.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's a problem.
So why does it sound terrible at church, but it sounds awesome?
We could talk on this all day.
I have read so many comments on Facebook groups that this is, or we've received support requests.
Yeah.
Like your patches are broken because they don't sound good at church.
When we have issues, we tend to blame other people. It's fine. I understand. I'm not offended.
Can I be salty and bold? This isn't meant to offend anybody, although it might.
Why would you say something so brave and yet so controversial at the same time?
Here's the biggest reason why your patches, your unit doesn't sound good at church.
I think I know where you're going.
And but it does, like in your headphones or whatever, is because in many, I hesitate to say most, but I suspect probably most. In many churches, the sound system is installed by people who don't really know what they're doing and don't know how to properly install a live sound system.
Which very well could be because that place is just trying to
it's
save
a volunteer.
money. Or they don't know what they don't know. They don't realize it requires a lot of
Or it's like
knowledge.
somebody said, I'll do it. And that's great.
People mean well.
It doesn't mean that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? They haven't had training or experience. And so you've got a sound system, and often it is done on a shoestring budget. So you don't have very good equipment to begin with.
Yeah, we want it to sound like $1 million.
Yeah.
But we only have 1,000.
And this is just the reality of life and many churches and things. It's like we don't have unlimited resources or people that have like all this technical knowledge, right? So you've got a sound system that doesn't sound great to start with because the equipment isn't very good, and then you've got it is being installed by people who really don't know what they're doing, and then it is being run by people who might have less of an idea what they're doing. And so all of this together, it's a perfect storm, if you will.
Perfect storm.
of bad tone.
We're not. This is not chastising. This is more like let's just call it as we're trying to be helpful.
Leaders define reality.
There it is, Brian. But the reason why this is important to talk about is just to like maybe make a guitarist breathe a sigh of relief and be like,
it's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
So you've got all of this working against you at a church, right? So some suggestions on how to mitigate this. The first thing we always tell people is have a good relationship with the person running sound at your church. Like, be a friend, be nice, be kind, be understanding. You got to have that relationship.
Bring them treats.
Yeah, bring the food and things. Yes.
What front of house people like coffee and energy drinks. I don't know
right.
what it is about people in production. I mean, so do I. But like production people always love that stuff.
Yeah.
So just be nice to them.
So you've got your Helix at church, right? Or your HX Podgo, whatever.
Any of these things.
It sounds great in your headphones. It sounds bad at church. Go have a private conversation with the sound. Don't do this like yelling from stage in front of everybody.
Hey, idiot. Start over.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Go to them and say, I have an idea. It doesn't sound the same coming out of here as what I'm used to and what I really like worked hard to dial in. Can we try something together? I did this not that long ago. Can we try something together? And a lot of times they'll have like EQ and compression on your channel because that's what most people think you need to do. And in many cases it is, but not.
It can be helpful,
but not before you actually hear the source that's coming through.
Yes.
So say, can we take everything off my channel? No EQ, no compression.
No nothing.
Let's first properly set the gain stage. And once we do that, can we just listen? And this was my experience. I said, and I had a really good relationship with this person.
You also do this for a living.
Yeah.
So that's a little different than
right.
Yes.
But it was a Behringer X32, so it's got the compression and EQ buttons. You can just press the button and they turn off.
Which didn't you basically get asked to write like the manual for all the worship leaders at New Hope for how to use that? Yeah.
So I went up there and I was wireless, which let me do this, right? So I could walk up there and I was like, can we try something? Can we just turn these things off and see what this sounds like? And I turned it off and I played the chord and I was like, the guy looked at me and I could see in his eyes like it's the first time he'd ever heard tone in his life. The guitar sounded amazing. Gee. And so I was like, yeah, we'll just kind of leave it like that. And I was like, and he goes, okay, I'm just going to leave it off. And I said, well, that's not what I'm suggesting. Like if you hear that it needs something done when we're all playing together, then make an adjustment.
Yeah.
But that's the point of EQ and compression.
Because compression keeps you from being like too. Actually, a lot of people think compression keeps you from being too loud, but when done right, it also keeps you from being too quiet.
Yes, it evens everything out.
Like when you think about it that way, it's like, this is kind of cool. You mean to tell me that you want to make sure I don't get too quiet in the mix? I'm in.
So that's step number one. You and the sound person together, let's go on this journey of making the guitar sound as good as it can. First thing is turn everything off and see what it does. And that might solve a lot of problems right there. But the other thing that you have to understand is, yes, it might be, not high quality equipment installed by people and run by people who don't have a technical knowledge of how to do it well. And it's not their fault. It's because they've just never been taught or don't have much experience. They're volunteers. They've offered their time, and that's a good thing. But you have to understand, too, that every speaker, right? So we've been talking a lot about monitoring devices, speakers, headphones. Anything that amplifies the sound and lets you hear it is going to color things in some way or another.
And even if there's somehow to guarantee it doesn't,
it still does.
Even then, the room you were in will make a difference.
Yes, so everything...
The reflections of...
it all causes things to sound different. So you could line up 5 different pairs of headphones, and they're all going to sound different. Like the same thing into them, they all sound different. You could have all these different studio monitors. They all sound a little different. Now, when it comes to PA speakers that are being EQ'd by like an EQ on the PA...
tuned for the
room. They're all going to sound different. Every room is going to, reflections, bass trap, all these kinds of things. It's all going to sound different. So understand that every room you play in is going to sound a little different. All these speakers are going to sound different. And your glorious sounding tone in your headphones is going to sound different in the room. And there's no way it can be exactly the same. It would be extremely difficult. So that's why EQ exists on soundboards and things like that. But it is a good idea to, if you can, take your modeler to church and play your stuff and maybe make a copy of your patch and call one home and one live.
Yeah.
And then make some adjustments. That's why, like on the Helix, there's a global EQ. So you can use the global EQ for different venues, right? So then you can EQ your patch without changing the patch, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's probably better just to make a new patch.
The only reason we suggest normally not to use the global EQ is because people often forget.
Yeah, it's on and you forget it.
And you forget, and you're like, why does this sound so? It's like, well, the last room you played in had this weird mid thing going on. So you cut mids and now you lost all the body of the guitar in this other room you're in. Yeah.
It's the same thing with the sound person. Can we try just turning that off?
Yeah.
See what happens. So there you go. That's some suggestions. Oh, one more thing. Volume plays a huge factor too. There's a thing called the Fletcher-Munson curve.
Science.
Yes. It is the perceived level of highs and lows as you turn things up. So as you turn a signal up loud, the lows and the highs become accentuated to our ears. So it's not like they're actually adding lows and highs, but the way we hear it sounds like more lows and highs.
Yeah.
So if you play quietly most of the time and then you go somewhere and they crank you, what church cranks the guitar? That doesn't happen.
If
yours does.
if my man Gene is running in front of the house at Hope,
there you go.
I am loud.
So
He's a guitar player.
The point is, you want to dial your patches in, ideally in the space if you can, and at the volume you're going to be playing if you can. So don't do it super quiet, because then when you turn it up, it'll sound a little different.
Yeah.
And when we make patches, that's what we do. I mean, we have monitors that we know and trust.
Our brains are fried after
and
doing
we
that.
turn it up so that it's like we're hearing it at live volume.
Yeah. You just need to know and understand what the issue is, because there's no way around it, and it's not a big deal. It's just the nature of the thing, right? I was prepping stuff at home regularly, going to church and asking, like, hey, everything sound good? Like when I first started playing at the church I'm at now, Hope. And they were like, it sound fine. I said, I could have been a little brighter, but we're good. I was like, okay. Well, I paid attention to that, but it dawned on me one day that my speakers and my room, because that's the other thing, doesn't matter. I could have really high-end studio monitors, and if the room is not treated,
it doesn't matter.
You may get to a point where certain things are fine, but like it's gonna. So my room and the monitors I have high end. So what am I gonna do at home? I'm gonna make that darker.
Yeah.
And then I get to church,
like
and
your room is really bright.
Yeah. And then I get to church, and they're like, "Well, we could have just used some high end, but everything sounds great." And it dawned on me. I was like, "So what? I know at home." If you are loud and things are going to seem brighter when they're loud too. So like I actually listen quieter anyways, and it helps me not blaring myself with audio. But when it's quieter, the brightness isn't as bad. But I know to like, okay, if it sounds roughly a little too bright, then I'd prefer it's probably going to be good. It's going to translate. So you just have to like.
So that's the point of knowing the room you're going to be in.
Yeah, and like it's easier to learn your room, I think, and kind of know what things. So I know like at my house, everything's brighter, so I know to like do that. But also, when I get there, I always get there early. I hate if call time is 5:45. I do not get there at 5:45. I get there like 5:30.
There you go.
I want to have all my I want to have all my stuff set up.
Everyone collectively is like, you have to get to church at 5:45.
No, and I'm sorry, Thursday nights. Thursday nights. Okay. Sunday I get there at 7:45.
There you go.
Praise God. It's awesome. But okay, so that's just some stuff that maybe you just didn't know or you've wondered about, and you're like just kind of frustrated, because I could see people thinking, am I like the only person who's confused about how to do this stuff? You are not alone. Even professionals like who tour deal with this night after night. If you watch like some of the Premier Guitar rig rundowns, you'll occasionally see people doing their rigs, and they talk about, like I remember Jason Isbell. He has some of his stuff. He has some like Chase Bliss pedals sitting on top of his rack, and he goes, "Yeah, I just every night I come in here and I adjust a couple things based on how the room sounds." Yeah, professionals who tour, who have techs and professional front of house engineers, even they make adjustments to the rig based on the room. They'll adjust reverb, how big it is, how small it is. They'll adjust how drive sound, how amps are EQ'd, all that stuff.
Yep,
because the room changes things.
Yes, it does.
So we could get way deeper into this. If you have specific questions, we have some thoughts on like what a follow-up video could be. But if you have something specific you'd like us to talk about, drop it in the comments and let us know. This is a new style format video too.
Yeah,
we thought that maybe
this might even be a podcast.
At this point, it might as well be.
It's long enough.
You start sharing stories, and it's just but that makes it fun. We're human. We're not robots. You can use robots to create scripts and videos now, though. Maybe we should have just done that. That'd be easier. Anyways.
Yeah. ChatGPT.
Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.